Your phone rings, the screen glowing with a familiar number, your parents' house. You miss the call, but the voicemail waits, a blinking light in the dark. You press play, and a voice you buried months ago, a voice that should be silent forever, whispers through the static. It's me. I'm here. I need your help. Your cousin's voice, unmistakable, pleading from beyond the grave. And now, you can't unhear it. It's calling you still. October 2004 shattered my world. My cousin Ryan, the one who'd taught me to ride, a bike who'd laughed louder than anyone, was gone. Taken by an accidental overdose at 23. His death left a hole, a raw ache that lingered in every family gathering, every quiet moment. His older brother, Caleb, was my closest confidant, raised like a sibling in our shared childhood home. We grieved together, leaning on memories of Ryan's crooked smile, his odd, lilting way of speaking that made every story a performance. But 4 months later, in the gray chill of February 2005, something impossible pulled us back into his shadow. You think the dead stay silent, don't you? But some voices find a way. It was a Tuesday, the sky heavy with snow clouds, when Caleb called me, his voice trembling through the phone. I need to see you, he said, each word clipped, urgent. Something's happened. I told him to come over, my stomach twisting at the panic in his tone. When he pulled into my driveway, his face was ashen, his hands shaking as he climbed out of the car. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, and as it turned out, he had. We sat in my living room, the air thick with the scent of coffee and the hum of the radiator, but Caleb's eyes were distant, his fingers clutching his phone like a lifeline. You're not gonna believe this, he whispered, his voice breaking. You wanna know, don't you? What could scare him like that? He told me the story in fragments, his words halting as if speaking might make it real again. He'd been driving home from work, the radio low, when his phone rang. The caller ID showed his parents' home number, a landline we all knew by heart. He was on a busy road, so he let it go to voicemail, pulling over to call back. His dad answered, sounding confused. We didn't call you, he said. His mom, in the background, echoed the same. Caleb frowned, checking the call log. There it was, a missed call from their house, time-stamped minutes ago. Maybe a glitch, he muttered, but curiosity gnawed at him. He opened the voicemail, expecting a pocket dial, a hum of static. Instead, he heard Ryan. You hear it in your mind now, don't you? His voice calling. Caleb didn't explain, didn't prepare me. He just handed me the phone, his hands unsteady, and pressed play. The static crackled, a low hiss that seemed to pulse with intent. Then clear as day, Ryan's voice filled my ear. It's me. I'm here. I need your help. His cadence was unmistakable. The slight drawl, the way he stretched vowels, a rhythm I'd known since childhood. But there was something else, a tremor of fear, a desperation I'd never heard. My vision blurred, my breath catching, the room spinning as if the floor had dropped away. Ryan had been dead for 4 months, his body cold in the same house where that phone sat. Yet here he was, speaking, pleading, from a number that shouldn't have called. You feel the chill, don't you? It's not just a voice, it's him. I played it again, then again, each time hoping I'd misheard, that it was a cruel prank. But it was Ryan, every inflection, every pause. Caleb's eyes were red, his voice barely a whisper. He sounded scared, he said, like he's trapped somewhere. We sat in silence, the voicemail looping in my mind, its words carving a wound. I thought of the house, its creaky floors and dim hallways, the room where Ryan had taken his last breath. Had something lingered there, caught in the walls, in the wires? I remembered a story my aunt told years ago about a phone ringing in her old house. No one on the line, Just static, and a faint voice she swore was her father's. I'd laughed. Then but now, with Ryan's voice echoing in my ears, it wasn't funny. You're thinking about it now, aren't you? The calls you ignored, the voices you dismissed. We saved the voicemail, transferring it to a computer, a fragile piece of evidence we couldn't let go. It changed us. Caleb and I dove into the paranormal, reading books, joining forums, talking to mediums, chasing answers. We wanted to know if Ryan was still here, if he needed us, if we could help. The voicemail became our anchor, proof that the world was bigger, stranger than we'd believed. But in 2016, a fire tore through Caleb's parents' house, reducing everything, photos, clothes, that computer, to ash. The voicemail was gone, its loss a fresh grief, as if Ryan had died again. You can't hold on to the dead, can you? But they hold on to you. I still hear it sometimes. In the quiet of the night, Ryan's voice cutting through the dark. I'm here. I've spent years chasing the paranormal, investigating haunted places, recording EVPs, searching for signs. Every case, every shadow, is a step toward understanding what happened that February. I told a friend once, expecting skepticism, but she nodded, her eyes distant. She'd had a call like that, she said, from her sister, gone a year. They find a way, she whispered. You're not alone in this, are you? Others have heard them too. I don't have the voicemail anymore, but I don't need it. It's etched in me, a scar that never fades. I share this not to convince skeptics, but to honor Ryan, to mark the moment my life turned toward the unknown. If you've heard a voice, felt a presence, I want to know. Because Ryan's still out there, somewhere, and I'm still listening. Pick up the phone. He's waiting. The night was a living shroud, wrapping our house in a darkness so thick it felt like a presence. A silent predator that watched us with unblinking eyes. It was 2017 and I was 16, a girl teetering on the edge of childhood. My world still, small enough to feel safe within the walls of our two-story home, or so I thought. My older sister, Lena, 19 and bold in ways I could only dream of, was my anchor, my protector, the one who always knew what to do when the world felt too big. We shared a room on the upper floor, its metal railing overlooking the living area below, a barrier that let sound travel freely but kept the shadows at bay, a false promise of security that would shatter that night. Our aunt and cousin were asleep in their rooms, their doors closed against the late hour, and our mother's boyfriend had left to fix a car, leaving us alone in a house that suddenly felt too large, too empty, too alive with secrets it had kept, hidden until now. The room we shared was a sanctuary, a small haven we'd carved out in a world that often felt unkind. The walls were plastered with posters of bands we adored, their faces frozen in mid-scream, a testament to the music that drowned out our fears. A small lamp cast a warm golden glow across the space, its light a fragile shield against the darkness that pressed against the windows. The night outside a void that seemed to swallow the stars. The air was tinged with the faint scent of lavender. A candle we'd lit earlier still burning on the dresser, its flame flickering with every draft that slipped through the old house's cracks. Lena and I were sprawled on her bed, the mattress creaking beneath us, our voices low as we talked about everything and nothing. School dramas, the boys we liked, the dreams we held close, the future we couldn't quite see but wanted to believe in. Our laughter was soft, a delicate thread in the stillness, a defiance against the quiet that seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute, a quiet that felt like it was waiting, listening, biding its time. That fragile peace shattered in an instant, a sound rising from the darkness below that turned my blood to ice. It was a voice deep and raspy, like a throat ravaged by centuries of torment. a sound that wasn't meant for the living, calling Lena's name with a chilling clarity that cut through the night like a blade. "Lena." It rasped, the syllables, dragging out, each one a jagged edge that clawed at my nerves. A sound so wrong it seemed to echo from the depths of a nightmare. We froze, our laughter dying in our throats, our eyes meeting in a shared terror that needed no words. A primal fear that gripped us both and held us captive. The voice came again, stronger this time. A force that seemed to rise from the shadows below, climbing the stairs with an intent that made my stomach twist. A cold dread seeping into my bones as I realized what I was hearing wasn't human. Not fully, not anymore. It sounded like a creature from the darkest corners of my imagination. A clown whose voice had been torn apart by decades of anguish, its tone raw and guttural, carrying a weight that made the air feel heavy, oppressive, as if the house itself was pressing down on us, trapping us in its grasp. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I scrambled off the bed, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor, my movements frantic, driven by a fear I couldn't name. Lena was right behind me, her face pale, her eyes wide with a terror that mirrored my own, a vulnerability I'd never seen in her before. We reached the door in a heartbeat, our hands trembling as we slammed it shut, the wood shuddering under, the force, a desperate barrier between us and whatever lurked below. I turned the lock with fingers that felt numb, the sound of the latch sliding into place a hollow promise of safety, a shield that felt as fragile as glass against the malevolence that pressed against the other side, its presence a dark storm that threatened to break through. The voice had stopped, but the silence that followed was worse, a void that pulsed with anticipation, a living thing that wrapped around us, suffocating us with its weight. I pressed my back against the door, my breath shallow, my eyes darting to Lena, searching for the strength I knew she held, the strength I needed to borrow just to keep standing. But she was trembling too, her hands clenched into fists, her face, a mask of fear that mirrored my own, a reflection of the terror that had taken root in us both. And then we heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, climbing the stairs with a rhythm that echoed like a heartbeat, each step a declaration of intent, a promise that whatever was down there was coming for us, its purpose clear, its malice, a tangible thing that seeped through the walls, wrapping around us like a noose. My heart raced, a frantic drumbeat in my chest as the footsteps grew louder, closer, stopping just outside our door, the silence that followed a taunt, a challenge, a reminder that we were trapped, defenseless, our fear a beacon that drew it nearer. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely dial, the screen blurring through the tears that stung my eyes as I called 911, the operator's voice a distant lifeline in the dark. "There's someone in our house," I whispered, my voice shaking, barely audible, the words a plea for salvation from the nightmare that had invaded our home. Lena was on her phone too, calling our mother, her voice breaking as she begged for help, for someone to save us from the terror that pressed against our door, its presence a shadow that loomed larger with every passing second, a darkness that threatened to swallow us whole. We waited, our breaths shallow, our bodies pressed against the door, every creak of the house a dagger in my chest, every shadow a threat that made my skin crawl. The footsteps didn't return, their absence a cruel trick that left us waiting, dreading, the silence a predator that toyed with us, its patience a weapon sharper than any blade. When our mother's boyfriend arrived, his arrival a jolt of reality in the surreal terror that had gripped us, we dared to open the door, our movements tentative, our fear a living thing that clung to us, refusing to let go. He searched the house, his flashlight cutting through the shadows, its beam a stark contrast to the darkness that had held us captive. But he found nothing, no intruder, no sign of disturbance. Every door locked, every window secure, the house as empty as it should have been, its stillness a mockery of the terror we'd endured. But I knew better. I felt it in my bones, a certainty that something had been here, something that wasn't bound by the rules of the living, something that had called Lena's name with a voice that wasn't meant for this world, a voice that echoed from the dark. Below, a place I couldn't see but could feel, a void that stretched beneath our feet waiting to claim us. That night left scars I can't erase, a memory that haunts me every day, a terror that clings to me like a shadow I can't outrun. Its weight a constant reminder of the darkness that had invaded our home. I thought I was going to die, thought the darkness would claim us both. Its raspy voice a promise of something I couldn't face, something that lingered in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to call my name. The years have passed, but the memory of that night refuses to fade. Its edges as sharp as they were then, cutting into me whenever I close my eyes, whenever I hear a sound in the dark that I can't explain. I've tried to make sense of it, to convince myself it was just an intruder, a trick of the mind. But deep down, I know the truth. Something was in our house that night, something that wasn't human, something that wanted us to know it was there, to feel its presence, to fear its voice. The house has always had a reputation, whispers of spirits that linger in its walls, echoes of the past that refuse to rest, and I've felt them before, sensed their presence in the quiet moments. But nothing has ever come close to that night, to the voice that called from the dark below, a voice that still echoes in my dreams, a reminder that some shadows never truly leave, that some terrors are eternal, waiting for the night to call my name again. The park at night felt alive with shadows that didn't belong. I discovered that unsettling truth on a warm May evening in 2025, just a few blocks from my apartment in Oakwood Heights, a neighborhood I'd always considered safe. It was 10:30 p.m., the sky a deep velvet blue, the streetlights casting golden halos on the pavement as Ethan and I walked hand in hand through Riverside Park, a small green space we'd frequented since we started dating 2 years ago. Step into that park, with me, feel the night air turn heavy around you. The park was our sanctuary, a place of quiet strolls and whispered conversations. But that night it became a stage for a fear I'd never forget. We were in a playful mood, the kind that comes after a good dinner and a shared bottle of wine, our laughter echoing softly through the empty park. The air was warm, scented with blooming jasmine from the bushes lining the path, the sound of crickets a gentle hum beneath our footsteps. We stopped near the old oak tree at the park's center, its gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers against the night sky, a spot we loved for its charm and the way the moonlight filtered through the leaves. Ethan pulled out his phone, his grin wide as he suggested a selfie, the camera flash a brief burst of light in the darkness. You've felt that moment, haven't you? The carefree joy that blinds you to the shadows lurking nearby. I leaned into him, my cheek pressed against his, my smile genuine as the shutter clicked, capturing a moment of happiness I thought nothing could taint. That's when I saw him, the stranger, standing just beyond the reach of the nearest streetlight, his figure a dark silhouette against the faint glow. See him there, a shadow made real, his presence a stain on the night. He was tall, his frame lean and angular, dressed in a long black coat that seemed to swallow the light. A wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face, hiding his features in shadow. In his hands he held a camera, its lens glinting faintly as he adjusted it, the movement deliberate, focused. My smile faltered. a chill creeping up my spine despite the warm air, the jasmine scent suddenly cloying, oppressive. Ethan noticed, him too. His hand tightening around mine, his voice low as he called out, "Hey, can we help you?" The stranger stepped closer, his movement slow, almost predatory, the camera still in his hands as he spoke, his voice smooth but edged with something I couldn't place, something that made my stomach twist. "You two look lovely," he said, his tone too familiar, too intimate. "Let me take your picture, I'm a photographer." Hear that voice now, the way it slithers through the air, too close, too wrong. Ethan shook his head, his grip on my hand firm as he declined, his voice polite but tense. "No thanks, we're good." I nodded, forcing a smile, but the stranger didn't move, didn't lower the camera. Instead, he raised it, the lens pointed directly at me, the shutter clicking with a sharp mechanical sound that echoed in the quiet park. A sound that felt like a violation, like he'd stolen something I couldn't get back. Panic surged through me, my heart pounding as I stepped back, my voice trembling as I snapped, "Stop that!" I said no. Feel that panic now, the way it floods your veins, urging you to run. But the stranger didn't stop. He took another photo, the flash blinding me for a moment, the light searing into my vision, leaving spots dancing in my eyes. I turned to Ethan, my breath coming in sharp gasps, but before he could react, I was moving, my feet pounding against the gravel path as I ran, the park blurring around me, the shadows stretching long and menacing in the corners of my vision. Ethan called after me, his voice a distant echo, but I couldn't stop, couldn't slow down. The instinct to flee overwhelming every other thought, every other feeling. The park paths twisted and turned, the trees looming like silent sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky as I ran, my lungs burning, my legs trembling with the effort. I could hear footsteps behind me, heavy and deliberate. The stranger's presence, a weight on my back, a shadow I couldn't outrun. You've felt that chase, haven't you? The terror of being hunted, of knowing you're not fast enough. I didn't dare look back, didn't dare confirm what I already knew, that he was following me, his camera still in hand, his intent a mystery I didn't want to unravel. The park exit loomed ahead, the street beyond leading to the university library, a place I knew would be open late, a place where I could find safety, where I could breathe again. I burst through the library doors, the fluorescent lights harsh against my eyes, the warmth of the building a stark contrast to the chill that had settled into my bones. I collapsed into a chair near the entrance, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone, my fingers clumsy as I dialed Ethan's number, my voice breaking as I told him where I was, as I begged him to come find me. Let me take you back to a night I've tried to forget. When I was 16, I'd walked home alone from a friend's house, cutting through an alley I thought I knew, only to hear footsteps behind me, a man's shadow stretching long on the pavement, his pace quickening as I did until I ran, my heart in my throat, my breath a sob as I reached my door, safe but shaken, the memory a scar that never faded. Now in the library, that same fear gripped me, the stranger's camera a new kind of threat, a new kind of violation. Ethan arrived minutes later, his face pale with worry, his arms wrapping around me as I trembled, the library's quiet hum, fragile shield against the terror that still clung to me. He hadn't seen the stranger after I ran, hadn't heard the footsteps I'd heard, but he believed me, his voice steady as he promised we'd be more careful, that we'd never walk through the park at night again. You've felt that relief, haven't you? The kind that's tainted by lingering fear, by the knowledge that safety is fleeting. I was lucky, I know that. Lucky to have run, lucky to have escaped whatever the stranger wanted, whatever his photos meant to capture. But the fear lingers, shadow that follows me even now. A reminder of that night in the park, of the man with the camera, of the way he looked at me, as if he saw something I couldn't, as if he wanted to keep it forever. In the carefree chaos of a college prank, the night can hide a predator in plain sight. Ellie sat in the darkened dining room of her family's house, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and mischief as she peered through the window. The night outside a canvas of shadows. It was the first weekend of May 1997, and she, a sophomore at the local private 2-year college, had turned her home into a staging ground for a playful prank. The house sat right next to the campus, closer to some of her classes than the dorms, and tonight, she and her best friends Ryan and Sam were planning to scare a couple of girls who'd tried to trash Ryan's room earlier that day with shaving cream and toothpaste. Step into the night. Feel the thrill turn to dread. The college was buzzing with end-of-semester energy. Students packing up, sophomores preparing for graduation, the air alive with the hum of anticipation. But beneath the surface, Ellie felt a flicker of unease. A whisper that the night held more than just their childish games. The plan had come together quickly, fueled by laughter and the thrill of retaliation. Picture a group of friends, caught up in youthful rebellion, blind to the danger lurking nearby. Earlier that evening, 2 girls, Mia and her friend, had burst into Ellie's house, their hands reeking of shaving cream, giggling as they asked to wash up. Ellie had caught the scent immediately, her suspicions confirmed when she watched them leave, their whispers and glances betraying their intent. They were planning another prank, targeting Ryan's dorm room again, and Ellie wasn't about to let it slide. She rallied Ryan and Sam, their trio, a tight-knit group bound by shared classes and late-night study sessions, and together they devised a counterstrike. They'd wait in the dark, watching from Ellie's dining room, which overlooked the overflow parking lot, a shared space between the college and a nearby church, now occupied by a tractor-trailer parked perpendicular to the house. The girls would return, and when they did, Ellie and her friends would ambush them, a harmless scare to even the score. The night deepened, the campus alive with the sounds of students moving through the shadows, their laughter a distant echo against the hum of cicadas. Ellie and her friends sat in silence, their eyes trained on the parking lot, the darkness outside pressing against the windows like a living thing. Hold your breath. Watch the shadows take shape. They'd spotted Mia sneaking back toward the house, her form barely visible as she slipped behind the tractor-trailer, her intent clear. She was watching for movement, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Ellie whispered to Ryan and Sam, her voice a mix of excitement and determination. "Let's go," she said, her plan to creep around the trailer and scare Mia already in motion. They moved silently, slipping out the back door, their steps muffled by the grass, their hearts pounding with the thrill of the hunt. But as they rounded the corner of the trailer, a sight stopped them cold. A figure, clad entirely in black, lying motionless on the ground, just 10 feet from where Mia hid. "Look. Closer. See what shouldn't be there." Ellie's breath caught, her body tensing as she squinted into the darkness. The figure's head turned away from them, its stillness unnerving. She thought it might be Nate, a classmate known for his lack of boundaries, the kind of guy who'd show up uninvited and overstay his welcome. Ellie had made a point to keep her address from him, but he'd pledged to help them earlier that day, and she'd left him in the dorm's common area, expecting him to stay put. "It's Nate," she whispered to Ryan, her voice low, but doubt crept in as she studied the figure. Its stillness was too perfect, too deliberate, like a predator waiting for its prey. Feel the air grow heavy, charged with unseen eyes. The figure lay just beyond the trailer's edge, close enough to Mia that Ellie wondered how she hadn't noticed, her focus so intent on the house that she seemed oblivious to the danger nearby. Ellie's stomach churned, a primal instinct screaming that something was wrong, but they pressed on, determined to carry out their prank, their steps cautious as they moved toward Mia. They crept closer, Ellie leading the way, her hands curled into mock claws as she prepared to pounce, her heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and unease. Mia lay on her stomach, her eyes fixed on the house, completely unaware of their approach, or of the figure, just feet away. Ellie lunged, a playful snarl escaping her lips as she grabbed Mia, the girl's scream piercing the night, followed by the roaring laughter of Ryan and Sam. But the joy was short-lived. Turn your head. Feel the absence that chills your soul. Ellie glanced back toward the spot where the black-clad figure had lain, expecting Nate to join in the laughter, to reveal himself as part of the prank. But the spot was empty, the ground undisturbed, as if no one had ever been there. Ryan's laughter faltered, his voice low as he whispered, "Where's Nate?" Sam's eyes widened, his flashlight beam sweeping the area, revealing nothing but the cold, hard ground. He ran off," Sam said, his tone uncertain, pointing west toward the campus. But Ellie felt a cold dread settle into her chest, a realization that cut through the night's playful chaos. They hurried back to the campus, their steps quick and tense, Mia trailing behind, her face pale as she processed the scare and the mystery of the figure. They found Nate in the dorms, common area, his obnoxious grin unchanged. But when Ellie mentioned the figure, his response sent a chill down her spine. "I don't even know where you live," he said, his confusion genuine, his words a stark confirmation that the figure they'd seen wasn't him. Feel the truth sink in, a shadow that doesn't belong. Mia's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she realized how close she'd been to an unknown danger. A stranger lying in wait just feet away. Ellie's mind raced, the pieces falling into place. Rumors of break-ins around the college that summer. Houses walked through with little taken, as if someone was casing the area, watching, waiting. The black-clad figure wasn't a prank, wasn't a friend. It was a predator, a silent threat that had slipped through the night, leaving behind a fear that would linger long after the laughter faded. A reminder that even in the carefree days of college, the shadows could hide a danger all too real. You wake in the dead of night, your bedroom door creaking open, a small figure slipping inside. It's your child, you think, seeking comfort. But when their cold hand grips your foot, tickling, tugging, you kick out and find nothing. The lamp flickers on, revealing an empty room. Your children are asleep, safe in their beds, yet the chill lingers, the air heavy with a truth you can't face. Something was here, and it wasn't yours. 6 years ago, when my youngest, Ethan, was born, the night terrors began. They came without warning, a few times a week, tearing me from sleep with visions that blurred the line between dream and reality. My eyes would open, my heart pounding, but the world wasn't right. Usually, it was a tall man, silent and still, standing behind my bedroom door, his shape formed by the coats and robes hanging there. I'd blink, the illusion would fade, and I'd roll over, convincing myself it was nothing, just my mind, exhausted from parenthood, playing tricks. I'd heard of sleep paralysis, where you're trapped, unable to move, but this was different. I could shift, sit up, even speak, yet the visions felt real, too real. I meant to see a specialist, but life, diapers, school runs, endless laundry, got in the way. I learned to live with it, to push the fear aside, until the night it wasn't a man and the fear wouldn't leave. You think you're safe in your bed, don't you? But some things slip through the dark. It was a late autumn night. The house quiet except for the faint hum of the heater and the occasional creak of settling wood. I was in that hazy space between sleep and waking, my body heavy, my mind adrift. The bedroom door opened, slow and deliberate, the hinges groaning in the silence. A small figure stepped in, no taller than my 8-year-old daughter Sophie or my 6-year-old son Ethan. The room was dark, lit only by a sliver of moonlight through the curtains, but I could make out their shape, slight, hesitant, moving toward the bed. I smiled, half asleep, assuming one of them had had a nightmare. It wasn't unusual. Sophie often crept in after a bad dream, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. You see your child, don't you? You want to comfort them. Hey, you okay? I murmured, my voice thick with sleep as the figure rounded the bed, moving to the far side near the foot. They didn't answer, their steps silent on the carpet, their form a shadow against the wall. I waited, expecting the familiar dip of the mattress, the warmth of a small body climbing in. But there was nothing, no weight, no sound. Then, a cold hand gripped my foot, fingers small but firm, tickling the sole in a way that sent a jolt through me. I'm ticklish, always have been, and I kicked out instinctively, a reflex I couldn't control. My heart sank, guilt flooding me. I'd hit one of my kids. Oh, sorry, I gasped, rolling to flick on the bedside lamp, my hands fumbling with the switch. You feel it now, don't you? The wrongness in the air. The light flared, harsh and yellow, flooding the room. I spun around, ready to scoop up Sophie or Ethan to soothe their tears. But the bed was empty, the covers undisturbed. The room was still, the door half open, the moonlight casting long, jagged shadows. My breath caught, my pulse hammering in my ears. I leapt out of bed, my bare feet cold on the floor, and checked every corner, under the bed, behind the door. Nothing. No child. No sign of anyone. The air felt thick, oppressive, like it was holding its breath. I ran to the kids. Rooms, my heart in my throat, terrified I'd hurt them, that they'd fallen. Sophie was curled in her bed, her rabbit tucked under her chin, fast asleep. Ethan was sprawled across his, snoring softly, his blanket kicked off. They were fine, untouched, oblivious. You checked, didn't you? But the hand was real. I stood, in the hallway, my hands shaking, the house silent around me. The memory of that grip, those fingers burned into me. Small, cold, deliberate. It wasn't a dream, not like the tall man, not like the shadows I could explain away. I'd felt it, reacted to it, kicked out and found nothing. My mind raced, grasping for logic. Maybe I'd imagined it, a new twist in my night terrors, but the door had opened, hadn't it? I hadn't dreamed that creak, that slow swing. I checked the lock, the windows, everything was secure, no sign of intrusion. Yet the feeling lingered, a weight in my chest, a certainty that something had been in my room, something that wore a child's shape but wasn't mine. You're doubting yourself now, aren't you? But you know what you felt. The next morning I told my partner, Lisa, over coffee, my voice unsteady. She listened, her brow furrowed but suggested stress, maybe a need for that specialist. Her words were kind, logical, but they couldn't erase the chill in my bones. I remembered a story my mother told years ago about her own childhood. A night, she woke to a small figure at her bedside, silent, staring. She'd screamed and it was gone, her parents dismissing it as a dream. Some houses hold things, she'd said, her eyes distant. Our house was new, built for us. But now, I wondered, had something followed me, clung to me through those terrors? You're thinking about it, aren't you? The shadows in your home. Every night since, I've lain awake, my eyes on the door, waiting for it to creak open. I've moved the coats, cleared the hook, but the fear remains, a constant hum. I check. On Sophie and Ethan more than I should. Their peaceful faces a fragile comfort. I booked an appointment with a sleep specialist, but deep down, I know this wasn't just my mind. That hand, that figure, it was here, real as the bed I sleep in. I don't know what it wanted, why it chose me, but I feel it still. In the quiet, in the dark. And every night as I drift off, I brace for that touch, that cold grip, wondering if it'll come again. Close your eyes. Is it standing there now? The forest has a voice, but it's not one you're meant to hear. A sound that burrows into your soul and refuses to let go. My brother, Caleb, and I had spent countless hours in the wilds together. Our bond forged through years of shared adventures, from building forts in the dense woods of our childhood to scaling cliffs and hunting game across the sprawling landscapes of the U.S. We were fearless, or so I thought. Two souls who thrived on the thrill of the unknown, our spirits intertwined with the untamed beauty of nature. But in 2019, on a hunting trip deep in a public forest, I learned that some unknowns are better left untouched, that some voices carry a weight that can break even the strongest of us. It was my 5th time hunting in that area, a vast expanse of towering pines and hidden trails. But the first time I brought Caleb along, eager to share the solitude and challenge of the hunt with the one person I trusted most in the world. We arrived late, the sun already dipping below the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the forest floor as we navigated the narrow county roads. Little more than 2-track paths that wound through the wilderness, miles from any sign of civilization. The nearest main road was a distant memory, 8 or 10 miles away, leaving us in a world where the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a night bird, its cry a haunting echo in the stillness. We set up camp a few miles from our truck, our 3 tents a small fortress against the vastness of the forest, one for each of us to sleep in, and a third to store our gear, a space to change and prepare without cluttering our sleeping quarters. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of pine and damp earth, the ground beneath our boots soft with fallen needles, a carpet that muffled our steps as we worked. We moved with the ease of long practice, driving the stakes deep into the soil with an axe, their metal tips biting into the earth, a promise of stability in a place that felt alive with secrets. The first day passed in a blur of scouting and tracking, our boots leaving faint impressions in the forest floor as we searched for signs of game, our voices low, our laughter a rare intrusion in the quiet. The forest was dense, its canopy a tangle of branches that blocked out the sky, casting the world below in a perpetual twilight, the light filtering through in thin, golden threads that danced across the undergrowth. We found tracks, deer, perhaps, or something smaller, but nothing definitive, nothing to justify a shot. And as the day waned, we made our way back to camp, our bodies weary, but our spirits high. We cooked over a small fire, the flames casting flickering shadows across our faces, the warmth a comfort against the chill that settled in with the night. We ate, the taste of charred meat and canned beans a simple pleasure, and shared a few beers, their bitterness a sharp contrast to the sweetness of the forest air. The night was still young, the stars hidden by the canopy above, but exhaustion pulled at us, and we decided to turn in, our voices fading into the darkness as we crawled into our tents, the forest settling into a silence that felt heavier than it should. I was asleep, my dreams a hazy mix of the day's hunt and the forest's endless expanse, when a sudden jolt tore me awake, a force that shook my tent and sent my heart racing. "Evan!" Caleb's voice cut through the night, sharp and urgent, pulling me from the fog of sleep with a clarity that made my blood run cold. I sat up, my sleeping bag tangling around my legs, my breath shallow as I called back to him, my voice trembling, with a fear I couldn't name. He unzipped my tent, his silhouette a dark shape against the faint starlight that filtered through the trees, and slipped inside, his face pale, his eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen in him before. "You hear that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible, his hand gripping my shoulder with a force that made me wince. I shook my head, my mind still clouded with sleep, but as I listened, I felt it. A sound low and resonant, rising from the depths of the forest, a sound that didn't belong in this world, a sound that made the air itself tremble with its weight. It was like the call of a whale, a deep, mournful note that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, its vibrations rippling through the ground beneath us, shaking the tent with a force that felt alive, as if the forest itself was crying out. In torment, the sound shifted, its pitch rising to a high, piercing squeal that clawed at my nerves, then dropping to a low, guttural rumble that made my chest ache, a sound that felt like it was pulling at the edges of reality, threatening to tear it apart. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, my eyes locked on Caleb's, searching for an explanation, for reassurance, for anything that could make sense of what we were hearing. But he had none to give, his face a mirror of my own terror, his silence a confirmation that this was real, that this was happening, that we were caught in something we couldn't understand, something we couldn't escape. The sound continued, an endless cycle of highs and lows, each note a wave that crashed against us, its vibrations a physical force that shook the earth, dislodging leaves from the trees above, their soft patter a stark contrast to the roar that filled the night. It went on for what felt like hours, though I later realized it was closer to one, each second stretching into eternity, each sound a new layer of fear that wrapped around us, suffocating us with its weight. We didn't speak, didn't move, our bodies pressed close in the cramped tent, our breaths shallow, our hearts pounding in unison as we waited for it to stop, for the forest to return to the silence we knew. But the silence never came. Not the kind we wanted, not the kind that felt safe. When the sound finally faded, just as the first light of dawn began to seep through the trees, it left behind a stillness that was worse, a void that felt like a warning, a promise that whatever had made that sound was still out there, watching, waiting for us to make a mistake. And then the storm came. A tempest that roared through the forest with a fury I'd never seen, its arrival as sudden as the sound that had preceded it, as if the two were connected, a manifestation of the same unseen force that had shaken us to our core. The sky darkened, the air growing heavy with the scent of rain, and before we could react, the wind tore through our camp, its howl a mirror of the sound we'd heard, a scream that seemed to come from the forest itself. The stakes we'd driven into the ground, secured with an axe, were ripped free, their metal tips bent and twisted as if by an unseen hand, our tents collapsing around us, their fabric flapping wildly in the gale. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking us to the bone, its icy touch a shock against our skin, the thunder above a deafening roar that echoed the vibrations we'd felt, a reminder of the power that had awakened us in the night. We packed up in a frenzy, our hands trembling as we stuffed our gear into bags, the storm a relentless force that drove us from the forest, its fury a final warning that we didn't belong here, that we'd crossed a line we couldn't uncross. We rode back to the truck, the rain blinding us, the wind pushing against us, the forest a blur of shadows and chaos as we fled, our hearts pounding with a fear that lingered long after the storm had passed. Caleb dismissed it later, his voice tight as he claimed it was just machinery being dragged, a rationalization that felt hollow. a lie we both knew he didn't believe. But I couldn't dismiss it, couldn't forget the sound that had shaken the earth, the vibrations that had felt like a voice, a call from something ancient, something that didn't want us there. That night haunts me still, a memory that surfaces in the quiet moments, a shadow that follows me through the years, a reminder of the echoes of the forest void, a sound I'll carry with me forever, a whisper in the dark that tells me I was never meant to hear it, never meant to know. The house we'd called home for a decade turned against us, whispering secrets we weren't meant to hear. I felt that chilling truth unfold in the early weeks of May 2025, in the modest two-story house on Maple Lane, where my family had lived for 10 years without a hint of the supernatural. It was a place of warmth and memories, its walls adorned with family photos, its floors creaking with the familiar rhythm of our lives. Me, my parents, Thomas and Clara, and my older sister, Sophie. Step into that house with me. Feel the air grow, heavy with something unspoken. For a decade, it had been our sanctuary, a safe haven where nothing out of the ordinary ever happened, where the nights were quiet and the days predictable. But over the past few weeks, something had changed, something that made the familiar feel foreign, something that turned our home into a place of fear. It began with the footsteps, faint at first, a soft patter on the hardwood floor of the second story, hallway, just outside my bedroom door. Hear those steps now, the way they echo in the silence, deliberate and unhurried. The first time I heard them, I was lying in bed, the clock on my nightstand glowing 2:17 a.m., the house wrapped in the stillness of the early morning. I'd been scrolling through my phone, the blue light casting shadows on the walls, when the sound broke through. A steady rhythm, like someone pacing back and forth, their weight shifting with each step. My heart skipped, my breath catching. As I sat up, straining to listen, hoping it was just Sophie sneaking to the bathroom or Thomas grabbing a late-night glass of water. But the house was silent otherwise. No doors opening, no faucets running, just the footsteps, growing louder, closer, then stopping abruptly right outside my door. You felt that dread, haven't you? The kind that roots you in place, waiting for the unknown to reveal itself. I called out, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound brave. Sophie? Dad? But there was no answer, just the oppressive silence, the air suddenly colder, heavier, as if something had pressed itself against the other side of the door, listening, waiting. I crept to the door, my bare feet cold against the floor, my hand shaking as I turned the knob, the hinges creaking as I peered into the hallway. It was empty, the dim glow of the nightlight casting a faint yellow light on the walls. The air, still but charged with a presence I couldn't see. I checked Sophie's room, then my parents', but everyone was asleep, their breaths even, their faces peaceful, unaware of the footsteps that had haunted me. You've searched for answers like that, haven't you? The kind that leave you with more questions, more fear. The footsteps became a nightly ritual, a sound that filled me with dread. A reminder that something had invaded our home, something that moved unseen through the spaces we'd once thought safe. But it didn't stop there. A few nights later, I was in my room again. The door cracked open to let in the hallway light, my desk lamp casting a warm glow as I worked on a school project, the deadline looming closer with each passing day. The house was quiet, the rest of the family downstairs watching TV, their laughter a distant comfort. Then, without warning, my door slammed shut, the force so sudden, so violent, that I jumped, my pen clattering to the floor, my heart racing in my chest. Feel that jolt now, the way it shakes you. A violation of the calm. There was no draft, no open window, no reason for the door to move. Yet it had. the sound echoing through the room like a gunshot, the air growing colder in its wake, the scent of damp earth filling my nose, a smell that didn't belong in our house, a smell that spoke of something ancient, something wrong. I yanked the door open, my breath coming in sharp gasps, my eyes scanning the hallway. But it was empty again, the nightlight flickering as if struggling against an unseen force. I called downstairs, my voice shaking as I asked if anyone had come up, if anyone had closed my door, but Clara's voice floated back, calm but confused. "No, honey, we're all down here. Are you okay?" I wasn't okay. Not anymore. The door had closed with a force that felt deliberate, angry, as if something wanted me to know it was there, that it could reach me, that it could take away the safety of my own space. You felt that loss, haven't you? The moment when the familiar turns hostile, leaving you exposed. The final straw came a week later, on a night when Sophie and I were alone in the house, our parents out for a rare dinner date, the kind they'd started taking more often since Sophie turned 20 and I turned 17. A sign of their trust in us, a trust that now felt misplaced. We were in the living room, sprawled on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us as we watched a comedy show. The laughter on the screen a stark contrast to the tension that had settled over the house. The lights were on, the room bright, but the air felt heavy, the shadows in the corners too dark, too still. Then we saw it, a shadow tall and human-shaped moving across the room, its outline clear against the wall as it passed from the kitchen doorway to the hallway, its movement smooth, deliberate, like someone walking through our home. See that? Shadow now, the way it moves. A stranger in your space, uninvited. Sophie gasped, her hand gripping mine, her nails digging into my skin as we both froze, our eyes locked on the spot where the shadow had disappeared. We called out, our voices overlapping, "Who's there?" But there was no answer, no footsteps, no sign of anyone in the house. We searched every room, our hearts pounding, our hands clutching makeshift weapons. A rolling pin for Sophie, a heavy flashlight for me. But the house was empty, the doors locked, the windows secure. You've searched like that, haven't you? The kind of search that leaves you trembling, knowing you won't find what you're looking for, but feeling it all the same. The shadow had been real, too real. Its presence a violation that left us shaken, our laughter replaced by fear, our home no longer a place of safety, but a stage for something we couldn't understand. We told Thomas and Clara when they returned, their faces paling as we recounted the footsteps, the door, the shadow, their hands tightening around each other as they listened, their eyes reflecting the same fear we felt. Let me take you back to a story my mother once told me. When Clara was a girl, her family had lived in a house where things moved on their own. Books falling from shelves, doors opening in the night, a shadow that followed her down the hall, its shape too tall, too thin to be human. She'd never spoken of it much, dismissing it as childhood fancy. But now, hearing our story, her voice trembled as she wondered if something had followed her, if something had waited all these years to make itself known. You've heard those tales, haven't you? The kind that resurface when the impossible becomes real, when the past reaches into the present. 10 years in this house, 10 years of peace, and now this. Footsteps in the night, doors slamming shut, shadows walking through our home. A presence that feels alive, that feels like it's watching, waiting for us to acknowledge it. Some secrets don't stay buried, do they? They rise, unbidden, demanding to be seen. We're scared, all of us. The house no longer a sanctuary, but a place of fear. A place where something unseen has claimed its space among us. We don't know what it is, why it's here, or what it wants. But we know this. We need to find out, need to understand. before the shadows grow bolder, before the footsteps come closer, before our home becomes a place we can no longer bear to stay. In the quiet of a late-night shift, some shadows wear the faces of the dead. Lila stood behind the counter of the pizza parlor, her hands trembling as she swept the floor, the silence of the empty restaurant pressing against her like a heavy shroud. It was a late summer night, and at 19, Lila was working the closing shift at Si's Pizzeria, a small local spot where the scent of melted cheese and fresh dough lingered long after the last customer left. The neon sign outside flickered, casting a faint glow through the windows, but inside, the dim lights left the corners of the room cloaked in shadows, a darkness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Step into the quiet, feel the air grow heavy with unseen eyes. Lila had always loved the late shifts, the calm after the rush, the chance to lose herself in the rhythm of cleaning. But tonight, as she swept the last of the crumbs from the tiled floor, a creeping unease settled into her chest, whispering that she wasn't alone. The parlor was a familiar space, its walls adorned with faded posters of Italian landscapes, the counter cluttered with menus and a jar of pepper flakes. Picture a young woman, alone in a familiar place, unaware of the past that lingers. Lila had been working at Si's for nearly a year, her role as cashier and server a steady routine, greeting customers with a smile, pouring drinks, and chatting with regulars who tipped her with crumpled dollar bills. The staff was a tight-knit group, their laughter a constant backdrop to the hum of the ovens. But there was one name that lingered in whispers, a name spoken with a mix of sadness and unease. Darius, a co-worker who died a decade ago, his passing shrouded in mystery. Lila had heard the stories, the rumors of a tragic accident, but she'd never paid them much mind, dismissing them as the kind of tales that thrive in small towns. Yet tonight, as she swept near the counter, the air grew colder, the shadows deeper, and the weight of those stories pressed against her, a silent warning she couldn't ignore. She turned toward the open area behind the counter, a space that led to the kitchen, her broom pausing mid-sweep as a flicker of movement caught her eye. Look into the shadows, see what shouldn't be there. Standing near the kitchen entrance was a figure, translucent and shimmering, its form bathed in a faint, otherworldly glow. It was a young man, his skin light, his hair a short afro, dressed in the parlor's uniform. Jean shorts and a red shirt, the same outfit Lila wore, but faded, as if time had worn it thin. His face was clear, his features sharp, and for a fleeting moment, their eyes met. His gaze a mix of surprise and sorrow that sent a shiver racing down her spine. Feel the weight of his stare, a bridge between worlds. Lila's breath caught, her broom slipping from her hands as she stumbled back, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the hum of the refrigerator. She blinked, turning toward the window, to steady herself, the neon light outside reflecting in the glass, but when she looked back, the figure was gone. The kitchen entrance empty, the air still and heavy with a lingering chill. Lila's hands shook as she gathered her things, her mind racing with questions she couldn't answer. Picture a girl, shaken by a glimpse of the past, searching for answers. She locked up the parlor, her steps quick as she joined the others outside, their chatter a distant hum against the roar of her thoughts. Before leaving, she turned to her co-workers, her voice trembling as she asked, "Has anyone ever died here?" Their faces shifted, a mix of surprise and unease, and one of them nodded, his voice low. "Yeah, a guy named Darius about 10 years back. He worked here, died in a mysterious accident. Something about a park incident." Lila's stomach churned, the name echoing in her mind. The image of the translucent figure burned into her memory. A young man who'd once stood where she stood, now a ghost haunting the place he'd left behind. Years later at 29, Lila sat with her best friend Nora, the memory of that night still vivid, a shadow that never fully faded. Feel the past resurface, a memory that won't let go. They were sharing ghost stories over coffee, the warmth of the cafe a stark contrast to the chill that gripped her as she recounted her experience. The translucent figure, the uniform, the sorrow in his eyes. Nora's face paled, her hands tightening around her mug as she whispered, "I knew him, Darius. We were close in high school. He worked at Size back then, and he died. They said it was an accident, something about a choking game in a park, but it never made sense." Lila's breath caught, her mind flashing back to high school, a vague memory of Darius surfacing. A quiet boy she'd met through mutual friends, his laughter a distant echo now tied to the ghost she'd seen. Feel the connection, a thread that binds the living to the dead. The confirmation sent a shiver down her spine, the parlor's dim lights and faded posters replaying in her mind. A haunting reminder that some spirits don't rest. Their presence, a whisper of a life cut short, a shadow that lingers long after the ovens cool. You wake to the sound of your own voice, soft and familiar, calling your cat from downstairs. But you're alone, the house silent, your cat curled at your feet. The voice comes again, clearer, from behind a closed door. You tell yourself it's an echo, a trick of the mind. Then the kitchen cabinet swings open and you realize something's here wearing your words, and it's not leaving. 2 months ago, I moved into a 2-story house on a quiet street, its white walls and hardwood, floors promising a fresh start. It was just me and my tabby, Milo, his purring a steady comfort against the stillness of living alone. I've always been jumpy in empty houses, the kind of person who checks locks twice and keeps a light on. But this place felt different, warm, unthreatening, its corners free of shadows. I settled in, hanging photos, stacking books, letting Milo's soft paws mark the space as home. For weeks it was perfect. Then, 3 weeks ago, the house began to speak. You think your home is yours, don't you? But some things claim it first. It started subtly, so faint I dismissed it as my imagination. I'd be in the living room, Milo, sprawled on the couch when I'd hear my voice, a soft, "Hey, buddy," my usual morning greeting to him. Drifting from the kitchen or upstairs. It was quiet, like an echo caught in the walls, and I'd shake it off, blaming the house's acoustics or my tired mind. But the sounds grew bolder, more distinct. One morning as I poured coffee, the words came again, clear and unmistakable, from behind the closed door of the guest room. "Hey, buddy," it said. My pitch, my tone, but I was standing in the kitchen, my hands frozen on the mug. Milo didn't stir, his eyes half closed, oblivious. I checked the room, my heart thudding, but it was empty. Dusty furniture, bare walls, nothing more. You heard it, didn't you? Your own voice, calling from nowhere. The incidents piled up, each one sharper, more invasive. I'd hear it at night, lying in bed, the words floating from the hallway or the living room below. "Hey, buddy." Sometimes a whisper, sometimes loud enough to make me bolt upright. I'd searched the house, flashlight in hand, Milo trailing. Behind, but found nothing. No open windows, no neighbors close enough to mimic me. I told myself it was stress, maybe the isolation of living alone. But doubt crept in, a cold knot in my stomach. I remembered a story from my childhood told by my grandmother about a house where voices echoed, repeating words never spoken. "They're not yours," she'd warned, her eyes dark. "There's something else." I'd laughed then, but now with my voice ringing in the dark, it wasn't funny. "You're doubting yourself now, aren't you?" But the voice is real. Last week, I left town for work, leaving Milo in the care of my friend Jake. He's a practical guy, not one for ghost stories, but when I called to check in, his voice was tight, strained. "Something weird happened," he said. Every morning he'd whistle a specific tune to call Milo for breakfast, a sharp 3-note pattern he'd used for years. But yesterday, as he stood in the kitchen, the same whistle came back to him clear and perfect from the living room downstairs. He froze, Milo at his feet, the house silent. "I thought it was you, messing with me," he said, but I was alone. He checked the room, found nothing and left keys in hand, not looking back. "I'm not staying there again," he added, his words heavy with fear. "You feel it now, don't you? It's not just you." I returned home last night, my nerves frayed, Milo greeting me with a lazy stretch. The house felt different, colder, the air thick like it was holding its breath. As I fed Milo, I heard a faint creak from the kitchen. I turned, my pulse spiking, to see a cabinet door swing open, slow and deliberate, revealing nothing but dishes. I slammed it shut, my hands trembling, and checked every lock, every corner. Nothing. Later, a friend, Sarah, came to help feed Milo. She paused at my bedroom doorway, her face pale. "It feels wrong here," she said, stepping back. "Like something's watching." Her words echoed Jake's, my grandmother's, my own growing dread. "You see it in their eyes, don't you? They feel it too." "I'm writing this now," Milo curled. Beside me, the house silent but alive with a presence I can't name. I've had paranormal experiences before. Shadows, whispers, things I could shrug off. But this is different, personal. It's my voice, my words turned against me, echoing from rooms I know are empty. I'm scared to stay, scared to sleep, scared to hear myself call Milo's name from the dark. I've set up my phone to record tonight, hoping to catch it, to prove I'm not losing my mind. But what if I do? What if it's not just a voice, but something wearing my skin, my sound, waiting for me to answer? You're listening now, aren't you? What will you hear tonight? I don't know what's in this house, what it wants, or why it chose me. I've called a friend who knows about these things, someone who can cleanse the space, but she's days away. Until then, I'm alone with Milo, with the echoes. Every creak, every shadow feels like it's calling. And deep down, I know it's not my imagination. It's here, and it's not done. Turn off the light. It's waiting for you. Some places feel safe until they don't. Until the shadows you thought were harmless start to move with a purpose you can't ignore. I was 22, a receptionist at a housing community in a quiet suburb. My days filled with the mundane. Rhythm of answering phones, scheduling tours, and greeting prospective buyers with a smile I'd perfected over months on the job. The community was upscale, its model homes pristine showcases of modern design. Open floor plans, gleaming hardwood, floors and walls painted in soft, neutral tones that promised a fresh start. A new life. A sanctuary. I loved my job, the way it made me feel useful, the way it let me meet people from all walks of life. But that day, in the late afternoon haze of a spring day in 2023, I met someone who turned that sanctuary into a trap. Someone who made me question every instinct I thought I could trust. It was just after 4 p.m., the sun still high but casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the sales office, when he walked in. He was unassuming at first glance, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a faded flannel shirt and jeans that looked worn but clean, his boots scuffed with the kind of dirt that spoke of hard work. But there was something in his eyes, a sharpness, that didn't match the casual way he carried himself, a glint that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, even as I greeted him with my practiced smile. "Welcome," I said, my voice steady despite the unease that flickered in my chest. "Are you here to tour a model home?" He nodded, his gaze lingering on me a little too long, his lips curling into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A smile that felt like a mask hiding something darker, something I couldn't name but could feel. A weight that settled over me, like a storm cloud on a clear day. His name was David, or so he said, scribbling it on the sign-in sheet with a hand that moved too slowly, too deliberately, as if he were savoring the moment, drawing out the seconds to keep me in his orbit. I tried to shake off the feeling, to focus on the task at hand, but as I led him out of the office and across the manicured lawn to the model home, I couldn't ignore the way he walked just a step too close, his shadow overlapping mine, his presence a constant pressure at my back. The model home was a two-story beauty, its exterior a blend of brick and siding, its front door painted a welcoming shade of blue that belied the chill that ran through me as I unlocked it. Inside, the air was cool, the scent of fresh paint and new carpet mingling with the faint tang of cleaning products, a sterile perfection that should have felt safe but didn't, not with him behind me, his eyes boring into my back, his silence louder than any words could have been. As we moved through the house, I tried to keep my tone light, professional, pointing out the features I'd memorized, the granite countertops in the kitchen, the built-in shelves in the living room, the skylight that bathed the hallway in natural light. But his responses were curt, disinterested, his focus not on the house but on me, his gaze a weight that made my skin crawl. "What do you think?" I asked, turning to face him in the master bedroom, my voice brighter than I felt, hoping to break the tension that had settled over us like a fog. But he didn't answer. Not really. Just a low hum, a sound that vibrated with an intensity that made my stomach twist. His eyes never leaving mine, their sharpness cutting through the space between us like a blade. Stepped back, my heart racing, and that's when I noticed how close he was, how he'd positioned himself between me and the door, his body a barrier I'd have to pass to escape, a realization that turned my unease into a full-blown panic. He started asking questions, but they weren't about the house. They were about me, personal in a way that felt invasive, a violation of the unspoken rules that governed these tours. "Do you live nearby?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl, his eyes narrowing as if he were memorizing my reaction, cataloging it for some purpose I couldn't fathom. "How often are you here alone?" he continued, stepping closer, his shadow stretching across the floor, swallowing the light that had once felt so warm, so safe. I tried to brush it off to keep the tour moving, but my voice trembled, my words faltering as I led him to the next room, my mind racing with a fear I couldn't ignore, a fear that told me I was in danger, that I needed to get out, that I needed to run. The moment that broke me came in the master bedroom's walk-in closet, a space I'd always thought of as a selling point, spacious, lined with custom shelving, a haven for anyone who dreamed of organization. But when David stepped inside, his demeanor shifted, a darkness settling over him like a cloak, his movements slow, deliberate, as if he were setting a trap I couldn't see. "Come look at this," he said, his voice a command, not a request, his hand gesturing toward the back of the closet, his body blocking the entrance, his presence a wall I'd have to push through to escape. My heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat in my chest, as I saw the way his eyes gleamed, a hunger there that made my blood run cold, a realization that this wasn't about the house, that this was about me, that I was the prey he'd been stalking all along. I mumbled an excuse, my voice barely audible, and turned to leave, my legs trembling as I forced myself to move, to put distance between us, to find a way out before it was too late. I didn't walk. I ran, my feet pounding against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing through the empty house as I bolted for the front door, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my hands fumbling with the lock as I threw it open, the cool air outside a shock against my flushed skin. I didn't stop until I reached the sales office, my hands shaking as I locked the door behind me, my body trembling with the adrenaline that coursed through me, the fear that refused to let go. I called my manager, my voice breaking as I told her what had happened, as I begged for someone to come, to help, to make sure I wasn't alone with the shadow that had followed me from the model home. David was gone by the time they arrived, his absence a relief but also a torment, a reminder that he was still out there, that he knew where I worked, that he could come back. I didn't tell anyone at first, the shame and fear a weight I couldn't bear to share, but when I finally did, my manager insisted on running a background check, a precaution that turned my nightmare into a reality I couldn't escape. David had a history, multiple charges of sexual assault, a predator who'd walked into my life under the guise of a buyer, a man who'd seen me as a target, not a person, a threat I'd felt in my bones before I even knew the truth. The knowledge was a double-edged sword, a validation of my fear, but also a confirmation of how close I'd come to something unspeakable, how thin the line had been between safety and danger, between life as I knew it and a darkness I couldn't imagine. I still work at the housing community, but I'm different now, more cautious, more aware. My eyes always scanning for shadows that don't belong, my heart always racing at the thought of being alone with a stranger. I'm grateful I escaped, grateful my instincts saved me, but the memory of that day lingers, a shadow in the model home that I can't outrun, a reminder that some dangers wear human faces and some fears never truly fade. The safest place I knew became a prison of shadows I couldn't escape. That haunting truth seared itself into my memory on a cold winter night when I was just 6 years old, in the small house on Willow Street where my family lived, a place I'd always thought was a fortress of safety. It was around 1 a.m., the kind of hour when the world feels suspended, wrapped in a silence that's both comforting and menacing, a silence that can hide things you're not meant to see. Step into that house with me, feel the darkness press against you, heavy with secrets. I was a small child then, my world made of bedtime stories and the soft glow of my nightlight. But that night, the darkness held something far more sinister, something that would follow me into adulthood, a shadow I can't outrun. I woke with a start, my heart already racing, though I didn't know why, my small body tangled in the blankets of my bed, the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling casting a faint, eerie light across the room. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels alive, as if it's holding its breath, waiting for something to break it. I felt a creeping unease, a child's instinct that something wasn't right, that the safety of my room had been breached by something I couldn't name. You've felt that fear, haven't you? The kind that grips a child in the night, urging you to seek safety, to find the ones who can protect you. I slipped out of bed, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor, my teddy bear clutched tightly in my arms as I tiptoed down the hall to my parents' room, the one place I knew I'd be safe, the one place where nothing could touch me, or so I thought. Their door was ajar, the faint glow of a streetlight seeping through the curtains, casting long, jagged shadows across the floor, the kind of shadows that looked like monsters to a child's. James and Margaret were asleep, their breath slow and even, the rise and fall of their chests a quiet rhythm in the dark. I crept to the foot of their bed, my teddy bear dragging behind me, my small frame trembling as I climbed onto the mattress, nestling between them, the warmth of their bodies a shield against the unease that had driven me here. Feel that warmth now, the kind that promises safety, that lulls you into a false sense of peace. I closed my eyes, willing myself to sleep, to forget the fear that had woken me, to let the familiar scent of my mother's lavender lotion and my father's aftershave chase away the shadows, but the shadows didn't leave, they grew. I felt it before I saw it. A shift in the air, a chill that seeped into my bones, a weight that pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. My eyes snapped open, my heart pounding as I stared into the darkness of the room. The streetlights, glow now dimmer, as if something had swallowed the light, leaving only a void. And then I saw it, a shadow, tall and impossibly dark, standing at the far end of the room, its form a silhouette against the faint light, its edges blurred but its presence undeniable. See that shadow now, the way it looms, a darkness that doesn't belong, a threat you can't name. It was humanoid but wrong, its limbs too long, its head featureless, a void where a face should have been, its body a mass of black that seemed to absorb the light, to pull it into itself, leaving nothing behind but an emptiness that terrified me. The shadow moved, its steps silent but deliberate, gliding across the room toward me, its form growing larger with each moment, its darkness swallowing the space between us. Feel that approach, the way it closes in, slow and unyielding, a predator savoring the hunt. I wanted to scream, to wake my parents, to call for help, but my body betrayed me, frozen in a child's terror, my voice trapped in my throat, my limbs heavy as if pinned by an invisible force. I could only watch, my eyes wide, my breath coming in shallow gasps as the shadow came closer, its featureless head tilting as if studying me, as if it knew me, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The air grew colder, the scent of damp earth filling my nose, a smell that didn't belong in my parents' room, a smell that spoke of graves and forgotten places, of things that should stay buried. I squeezed my eyes shut, my small hands clutching my teddy bear, my mind screaming for it to go away, for this nightmare to end, for the safety of my parents' bed to return. You've prayed like that, haven't you? The desperate plea of a child begging the dark to spare you. When I opened my eyes, the shadow was gone. The room still once more, the streetlights' glow restored, the air lighter, the chill fading. But the fear didn't leave. It clung to me, a cold hand wrapped around my heart, a memory that burned itself into my mind, a memory I couldn't shake, even as the years passed, even as I grew into a woman who tried to forget. I never told James or Margaret what I saw that night, too afraid to speak it aloud, too afraid that saying it would make it real, would summon it back. Let me take you back to another night, one I've kept buried. When I was 10, I'd seen something in the hallway, a flicker of movement, a shadow that darted past the door, too quick to be real, but too vivid to be a dream. I'd run to my parents then, my voice trembling as I told them, but they'd found nothing, their laughter gentle as they tucked me back into bed, their voices soothing as they promised it was just my imagination. But this was different, this shadow in their room, this presence that had come so close that had left me paralyzed with fear, unable to move, unable to scream, unable to do anything but watch as it approached. Now, years later, I'm grown, living, in a different house, a different city, but the memory of that night still haunts me. A ghost I can't escape. A shadow that follows me in my dreams. Some fears don't fade, do they? They linger, growing roots in the dark, waiting for the right moment to resurface. I can still feel the chill of that room, the weight of that shadow, the way it moved toward me, its featureless form of void that swallowed the light, that swallowed my sense of safety. I can still feel the helplessness, the terror of a child who couldn't run, couldn't scream, couldn't do anything but wait for the darkness to claim her. I don't know what it was, what it wanted, why it chose that night, that room, that moment. But I know this. It's still with me, a shadow. I can't outrun a fear I'll carry forever. In the stillness of a college night, some echoes carry a threat that can't be unheard. Nora stood at the entrance of the music building, her breath fogging in the crisp night air, her heart pounding with a mix of curiosity and unease as she pushed open the heavy glass door. It was a late spring evening at her small Midwest college, a sprawling campus where old brick buildings whispered stories of decades past. At 20, Nora was a music major, her days filled with the rhythm of piano keys and the harmony of choir rehearsals. But tonight, she'd ventured into the building after hours, driven by a reckless whim to retrieve a forgotten sheet music book she needed for a recital the next day. Step into the shadows. Feel the silence take hold. The building, usually alive with the melodies of students, was now a cavern of darkness, its halls silent save for the faint hum of fluorescent lights flickering above, casting long, jagged shadows that seemed to shift with every step. The music building was a labyrinth of practice rooms and auditoriums, its walls lined with posters of past performances, the air thick with the lingering scent of rosin and old wood. Picture a young student, alone in a place of art, unaware of the danger that waits. Nora had spent countless hours here, her fingers dancing over the keys, her voice blending with others in the choir room. But at night, the building felt different, its warmth replaced by a coldness that seeped into her bones. She'd meant to be quick, grab the book from her locker near the choir room and leave. But as she stepped inside, the door closed behind her with a heavy thud, the sound echoing through the empty halls like a warning. Her flashlight beam trembled in her hand, its weak light barely cutting through the darkness, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the building was watching her, its silence a living thing that pressed against her chest, urging her to turn back. She made her way down the main hallway, her sneakers squeaking softly against the polished floor, her eyes darting to every shadow, every corner, as if expecting something to leap out. Listen to the silence. Hear what shouldn't be. She was halfway to the choir room when a faint sound stopped her cold. A single haunting note plucked from a cello, drifting from the direction of the practice rooms at the end of the hall. Her breath caught, her body tensing as she turned toward the sound, her flashlight beam sweeping the darkness, revealing nothing but empty space. The note lingered, a mournful hum that seemed to vibrate in her chest, and for a moment she wondered if another student had stayed late practicing in the dark. But the building was supposed to be empty, the doors locked after 9 p.m., and the thought of someone, or something, playing in the shadows sent a chill racing down her spine. Feel the note linger, a summons from the dark. She called out, her voice trembling. "Hello? Is someone there?" But the only answer was the echo of her own words, bouncing off the walls like a mocking refrain. Nora's grip tightened on her flashlight, her heart pounding as she forced herself to move forward, her steps slow and deliberate, each one a battle against the fear that clawed at her throat. She reached the end of the hall where a set of elevators stood, their doors closed, their lights off, a silent sentinel in the darkness. Stand before the doors. Feel the air grow colder. She was about to turn back, her courage faltering, when The elevator dinged, a sharp metallic sound that cut through the silence like a blade. The doors slid open, revealing a man inside, his tall, lanky frame illuminated by the elevator's dim light. He wore dark clothing, his face pale, his eyes locked on hers with an intensity that froze her in place. His stare was unblinking, a predator's gaze, and for a moment Nora couldn't move, her body rooted to the spot as the air around her grew heavy, charged with a menace she couldn't name. Look into his eyes. Feel the threat that binds you. Before she could speak, the man stepped out of the elevator, his movements swift and purposeful, his eyes never leaving hers as he began to jog toward her, his footsteps echoing in the empty hall like a drumbeat of doom. Run. Feel the panic take hold. Nora's scream caught in her throat, her body finally reacting as she turned and sprinted down the hall, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the sound of his pursuit. She didn't dare look back, didn't dare slow down, her mind racing with a single thought. Get out, get out, get out. She burst through the glass doors, the cool night air hitting her like a wave, her legs carrying her across the quad, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she ran toward the safety of her dorm. Feel the night close in, a predator just out of sight. She reached her room, slamming the door behind her, her body trembling as she collapsed against it, her hands shaking as she locked it tight, the echo of the cello note still ringing in her ears. Nora called her friend Elise the next morning, her voice shaky as she recounted the encounter, the haunting cello note, the man in the elevator, the chase that had left her breathless with terror. Lisa's voice was quiet, her words careful as she spoke. That building, it's got a history, she said, her tone heavy with unease. Students have heard things before, music when no one's there, footsteps in the halls. And there were break-ins a few years back. People saw a man matching your description, but they never caught him. Feel the weight of her words, a truth that haunts. The confirmation sent a shiver down Nora's spine, her nights plagued by the memory of that cello note, the man's unblinking stare, a reminder that some dangers don't need to be supernatural to terrify. They just need to be real, lurking in the shadows of a place she'd once called safe, waiting for the right moment to strike. You're alone in the back of a pizza parlor, the hum of the fridge your only company when you feel it. A presence, heavy, watching. You turn, and there he is, your friend, dead a year, standing translucent in the corner, his sad eyes locked on yours. He doesn't speak, doesn't move, but the air grows thick, your breath shallow. Then he's gone, fading into nothing. But you know he was there. And he's not done with you. For 3 years I've worked at Tony's Pizza, a small mom-and-pop shop where the smell of dough and marinara clings to everything. It's a place of late nights, loud laughs, and a crew that feels like family. I'm a shift manager now, trusted with keys and closing duties. But a year ago, that family broke. My coworker, Nate, was like a brother, quick with a joke, always. Leaning against the counter with his hands in his pockets, his grin lighting up the room. He had a heart condition, one he never talked about, and one night, it took him. He was 26, gone in a blink, leaving us reeling. His absence haunted the shop, his name unspoken but felt in every quiet moment. You've lost someone, haven't you? Their shadow lingers, doesn't it? 2 months ago, I was closing up, the clock ticking past 2 a.m. The shop was dark, the front shuttered, the only sound the hum of the walk-in fridge. I was in the stockroom, a cramped space of metal shelves packed with flour bags, cans, and cardboard boxes. Its single door, the only way in or out. The air was thick with the dusty scent of grain, the fluorescent light flickering overhead. I was reorganizing shelves, my back to the door, when a chill crawled up my spine. Not cold, but heavy, like someone had stepped into the room. I froze, my hands gripping a bag, my heart thudding. You feel it now, don't you? The weight of eyes on your back. I turned, slow, my breath shallow, and there he was. Nate, standing in the corner by the door, his form translucent, like a figure caught in fog. It was him, his broad shoulders, his slouched posture, his hands tucked in his pockets just like always. His face was clear, his eyes dark and sad, looking right through me. There were no mirrors, no windows, no way this was a reflection. The light didn't bend around him. He was there, real but not. A ghost in the space where he'd laughed, worked, lived. My chest tightened, a wave of grief crashing over me, the air so heavy I could barely breathe. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared, his expression a silent plea. You see him, don't you? He's trying to tell you something. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, but time stretched, the room shrinking to just me and him. Then he faded. Not dissolving, but gone, like a light switched off. The air lightened, but my legs shook, my hands trembling as I stood, staring at the empty corner. I didn't move for a minute, maybe 2, my mind racing. Was it real? Had I imagined it? Nate's face, his sadness was burned into me, undeniable. I locked up in a daze, not telling anyone, afraid they'd laugh or think I'd cracked under the late shifts. But the weight of it clung to me, a truth I couldn't shake. You're questioning it, aren't you? But you know what you saw. Next day, I pulled aside Maria, another co-worker who'd been close to Nate. We were in the break room, the smell of burnt coffee lingering, and I told her, my voice low, halting. Her eyes widened, her hands stilling on her apron. I saw him too, she whispered, her face paling. A week earlier, she'd been in the stockroom, restocking, when she'd glanced up and seen him, translucent, standing by the door, his hands in his pockets, his eyes sad. She'd frozen, her heart pounding, and he'd vanished, leaving her shaken. She hadn't told anyone, scared of judgment, but now, with my story, she knew it was real. It was Nate, she said, her voice breaking. He's trying to say something, but I don't know what. You believe them, don't you? He's still here. We sat in silence, the shop bustling around us, but our world was the stockroom, Nate's ghost. We agreed he wasn't malicious, not threatening, but his sadness, his presence was a wound. Was he stuck, unable to move on? Did he need us to know something? We haven't seen him since, but every late shift, I feel him. The stockroom is heavier now, the air thicker, the shelves casting shadows that seem to shift. I move faster, avoid looking at the corner, but his eyes linger in my mind, pleading, unfinished. You feel him too, don't you? Even when you don't look. I've thought about life, death, what comes after. Nate's death was a shock, but his return is a question I can't answer. I told a friend once outside the shop, the neon sign buzzing above us. She didn't laugh. She'd worked at a diner where a cook, long dead, was seen in the kitchen. His apron stained, his face tired. They stay for a reason, she said, her voice low. Her story echoed mine, a thread connecting us to the unseen. You've heard these stories, haven't you? They're all around you. I still close up, still walk into that stockroom, but it's different now. Every creak, every flicker feels like Nate, watching, waiting. I miss him, his laugh, his easy presence, but seeing him like that, trapped in that corner, breaks my heart. I don't know if he's stuck, if he's trying to reach us, or if he's just a memory the shop can't let go. But he's there, in the dust, in the dark, and I'm not sure I want to see him again. Turn around, is he standing there now? Childhood games should be innocent, but some memories twist into nightmares that cling to you forever. I was 7 years old, a small girl with pigtails and a boundless imagination, when the world I thought I knew turned dark in the span of a single afternoon. My older brother Ethan, who was 10 and always braver than I could hope to be, had dragged me along to our friend Tommy's house, a cozy suburban home just across the street from a quiet cul-de-sac. It was late summer, the air warm and heavy, with the scent of freshly cut grass, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting golden light across the neighborhood, turning the pavement into a canvas of long, stretching shadows. We were playing in Tommy's front yard, a wide, open space dotted with dandelions, our laughter echoing as we chased each other around his father's old sedan, its faded blue paint a familiar backdrop to our carefree games. The cul-de-sac across, the street was empty, or so I thought, its houses standing silent, their windows reflecting the fading light like unblinking eyes watching our every move. Ethan and I were in the middle of a game of tag, our sneakers pounding against the grass, our voices high and giddy as we darted around the car, using it as a shield, a fortress in our imaginary world. I was giggling, my cheeks flushed with the thrill of the chase when I glanced across the street and saw her, a woman, standing motionless in the middle of the cul-de-sac, her figure a stark silhouette against the setting sun. She was tall, her frame gaunt, her clothes a tattered mix of mismatched patterns, a long skirt swaying slightly in the breeze, her hair a wild tangle that framed her face in a way that made her look more shadow than human. I froze, my laughter catching in my throat, a cold prickle running down my spine as I realized she was watching us, her gaze fixed on me with an intensity that felt wrong, that felt dangerous, that felt like a promise I didn't want to understand. "Ethan, look," I whispered, tugging at his sleeve, my voice trembling as I pointed across the street, my heart pounding with a fear I couldn't name. He turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw her, his playful grin fading into something harder, something protective, the kind of look he got when he knew I needed him to be the big brother I relied on. "Who is that?" he muttered, his voice low, but before we could decide what to do, she moved, not toward us, not at first, but in a slow, deliberate circle, her head tilting as if she were listening to something we couldn't hear. Her movements jerky, unnatural, like a puppet on broken strings. And then, without warning, she started toward us, her steps quickening, her skirt trailing behind her as she crossed the street, her presence a storm cloud that swallowed the golden light, replacing it with a darkness that seemed to seep into the air around us. We didn't think, we ran, our instincts taking over as we bolted around the car, our feet slipping on the grass, our breaths coming in sharp, panicked gasps as we tried to keep the vehicle between us and her, a barrier that felt flimsier with every second that passed. She followed, her pace relentless, her movements eerily silent except for the sound that came next, a laugh high and unhinged, a cackle that tore through the evening air like a scream from a horror movie, its pitch rising and falling in a way that made my skin crawl, my heart race, my mind scream with a terror I'd never known before. It wasn't a laugh of joy, not even close. It was the sound of madness, of something broken, something dangerous, a sound that seemed to echo from a place I couldn't see, a place I didn't want to imagine, a place that felt closer with every step she took. Ethan grabbed my hand, his grip tight, his voice a frantic whisper as he urged me to keep moving, to keep running, to not look back, but I couldn't help it. I glanced over my shoulder, my eyes meeting hers for a split second, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Her face was pale, almost translucent in the fading light, her eyes wide and unblinking, her mouth stretched into a grin that was too wide, too sharp, her laughter pouring out like a torrent, a sound that seemed to wrap around us, suffocating us with its weight. We circled the car again and again, our legs burning, our lungs aching, our fear a living thing that drove us forward, a desperate dance of survival against a threat we didn't understand, a threat that felt more than human, more than real, a threat that felt like a nightmare come to life. The laughter stopped as abruptly as it had started, replaced by a silence that was somehow worse, a silence that pulsed with anticipation, a silence that told me she was still there, still watching, still waiting. And then I heard the front door of Tommy's house slam open, the sound a jolt that broke through the haze of my fear, followed by the sharp, commanding voice of Tommy's mother, a woman who'd always seemed gentle but now sounded like a warrior. Her tone fierce as she shouted across the yard. "What do you think you're doing?" she yelled, her words a lifeline in the dark, a shield against the terror that had gripped us. The woman froze, her head snapping toward the sound, her body tensing as if caught in a trap she hadn't expected. And then she turned and ran, her figure disappearing down the street, her laughter trailing behind her like a ghost, a fading echo that left my heart pounding, my hands trembling, my mind reeling with a fear I couldn't shake. We collapsed onto the grass, our breaths ragged, our bodies shaking as Tommy's mother rushed over, her arms wrapping around us, her voice soft now, soothing, asking if we were okay, promising that the woman was gone, that we were safe. But I didn't feel safe. Not then, not for a long time after. That moment stayed with me. A memory that surfaces in the quiet hours, a shadow that lingers in the corners of my mind, a question I can't answer no matter how many years pass. Who was she, that woman with the mad woman's laughter? And what did she want with us? I've wondered if she was just a troubled soul, someone lost in her own mind, or if she was something more, something darker, something that didn't belong in the light of day. All I know is that her laughter still echoes in my dreams, a sound can't escape, a reminder of the day innocence turned to fear, the day the world I knew became a place I could never fully trust again. The lake at night held a beauty that masked a terror we couldn't unsee. I learned that haunting truth on a summer night in 2010, when I was just 10 years old, during a family camping trip to Pine Hollow Lake, a serene spot nestled deep in the woods of northern Michigan, a place we'd chosen for its quiet beauty and the promise of a peaceful escape. My family, my parents, Daniel and Catherine, my older brother Nathan and I, had packed our old station wagon with camping gear, our hearts light with the anticipation of a weekend away, a chance to unplug and reconnect under the stars. Step into that campsite with me. Feel the night air grow heavy with an unseen threat. But what began as a night of marshmallows and laughter turned into a nightmare that would linger in my mind for years. A shadow that refused to fade, a mystery that still chills me to this day. We arrived at the lake just as the sun dipped below, the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the water reflecting the colors like a mirror, its surface so still it seemed to hold its breath. See that beauty now, the kind that lulls you into a false sense of peace. The campsite was a small clearing near the water's edge, surrounded by towering pine trees that whispered in the gentle breeze, their needles carpeting the ground in a soft, fragrant blanket. We set up our tent, a sturdy green canvas dome that felt like a fortress in the fading light, its walls sturdy but cozy, a temporary home for the four of us. Daniel built a fire, the flames crackling and popping, casting a warm orange glow on our faces as we roasted marshmallows. The sweet, sticky scent mingling with the earthy aroma of the forest. Catherine told stories, her voice soft and melodic, weaving tales of forest spirits and lake monsters that made Nathan and me giggle, our laughter echoing through the trees, a sound that felt so innocent, so safe in that moment. As the fire died down, the air grew cooler, the night wrapping around us like a heavy cloak, the stars above a glittering canopy that seemed to stretch into eternity. Feel that chill now, the way it creeps into your bones, a warning you don't yet understand. We crawled into the tent, zipping the door shut, the sound of the zipper a sharp note in the quiet night, a barrier between us and the world outside. Inside, the tent was warm and snug. My parents on one side, their sleeping bags pressed close, Nathan and I on the other, our own bags a tangle of blankets and pillows, the faint glow of a battery-powered lantern casting soft shadows on the canvas walls. I nestled into my sleeping bag, my body heavy with the day's adventures, my eyes fluttering shut as I drifted toward sleep, the sound of the lake lapping gently against the shore, a soothing lullaby in the distance. I was on the edge of dreams, my mind drifting through hazy images of campfire light and starry skies, when a sound jolted me awake, a rustling just outside the tent, a soft crunch of pine needles underfoot, the kind of sound an animal might make, a raccoon or a deer. I told myself, hear that rustle now, the way it breaks the silence, a whisper of something wrong. I sat up, my heart beating a little faster, my eyes straining to see through the darkness, the lantern's light now dim, its battery fading with the hours. Nathan stirred beside me, his breathing still slow, his body relaxed in sleep, unaware of the noise that had set my nerves on edge. I held my breath, waiting, hoping it was nothing, but then I heard it, the zipper on the tent door being pulled up. The sound slow and deliberate, a metallic scrape that sent a shiver racing down my spine. The flap opened and there she was, a girl, about 14 years old, standing at the entrance of our tent, her pale face illuminated by the faint moonlight, her dark hair tangled and wild, her faded jacket hanging loosely on her thin frame, the sleeves too long, the fabric worn and frayed. See her now, a stranger in the night, her eyes wide and unseeing, her presence a violation. She looked lost, disoriented, her movements jerky as she stepped closer, her voice a soft, trembling whisper that made my blood run cold. "Mom, Dad, I need you," she said, her gaze fixed on Nathan and me, her words a chilling echo in the quiet tent, a label that didn't belong to us, a plea that turned my fear into something primal, something I couldn't name. I froze, my body rigid with terror, my breath caught in my throat as I stared at her, my mind racing with questions. Who is she? Why is she here? But no answers came, only the growing dread that filled the space between us. Nathan woke with a start, his eyes wide as he saw her, his voice a shaky whisper as he echoed my fear. "Who are you?" Our parents stirred, Daniel sitting up first, his voice sharp with alarm as he demanded, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" But the girl didn't answer, her eyes still fixed on us, her voice rising, more desperate now. "Mom, Dad, please, I need you." As she tried to step into the tent, her hands fumbling with the flap, her movements frantic, unhinged. Feel that panic now, the way it floods your chest, a terror that demands you flee. Catherine's voice cut through the chaos, a scream laced with fear. "Get away! Leave us alone!" As she scrambled to her feet, her hands shaking as she pushed at the air, a futile barrier against the girl's advance. Daniel was up in an instant, his body a shield between us and the stranger, his voice a growl as he shouted, "Get out!" pushing her back, his hands firm but trembling. The girl stumbling into the night, her muttering fading into the darkness. Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad. A chant that echoed in my ears long after she was gone. We didn't wait for her to return. You've felt that urgency, haven't you? The kind that drives you to run, to escape the unknown. My parents made the decision in a heartbeat, their voices a mix of fear and determination, as they told us to grab our things, to move quickly, to get to the car. We tore through the tent, our hands shaking as we stuffed sleeping bags and clothes into backpacks, the lantern flickering out as we worked, plunging us into darkness, the moonlight our only guide. The air outside was cold, the lake a dark mirror, reflecting the stars, its beauty now menacing, a reminder of how far we were from help, from safety. We piled into the car, Daniel's hand steady on the wheel despite the fear in his eyes. Catherine clutching her phone as she dialed 911, her voice trembling as she explained. There's a girl at our campsite. She tried to get into our tent. She's calling my kids her parents. Please, we need help. We drove as fast as the narrow dirt road would allow, the trees closing in around us, their branches scraping the car like skeletal hands, the darkness pressing against the windows, a living thing that seemed to chase us as we fled. Feel that. Chase. The way the night hunts you, unrelenting. It wasn't until we reached the main road, the headlights of passing cars a beacon of normalcy, that we felt a semblance of safety. The police dispatcher's voice a lifeline as they promised, to search the campsite to find the girl, to make sure we were safe. But when they arrived, they found nothing. No girl, no footprints, no sign of anyone matching her description. Just an empty campsite, the tent flap still open, swaying in the breeze, a silent witness to the terror we'd left behind. That night still haunts me, a memory that refuses to fade, a shadow that lingers in the corners of my mind. Some nightmares don't end, do they? They grow roots feeding on the dark. I'm 25 now, living in a city far from Pine Hollow Lake, but I can still see her pale face, her tangled hair, the way she looked at Nathan and me. Her voice, echoing, Mom, Dad, I need you. A plea that didn't belong to us, a mystery I'll never solve. I wonder who she was, what she wanted, why she chose us. Was she lost, confused, or something else entirely, something darker, something that doesn't belong in the light? You've wondered about the unknown too, haven't you? The kind that keeps you awake, searching for answers that never come. I don't know, and maybe I never will, but I know this. The lake holds secrets I'll never return to uncover, shadows I'll carry forever. On a lonely highway at night, some shadows move with a rhythm that spells danger. Sam gripped the steering wheel of his old pickup truck, his knuckles white against the cracked leather, his eyes straining to pierce the darkness that swallowed the highway ahead. It was well past midnight, the kind of hour where the world feels hollow, and he was driving back to his small college town after a long weekend with friends in the city. The two-lane highway stretched endlessly before him, flanked by dense woods on one side and a steep drop-off on the other. The only light coming from his headlights, their beams cutting through the night like a fragile lifeline. Drive into the dark. Feel the night close in around you. The radio had long since lost its signal, leaving only static to fill the cab, a white noise that did little to ease the growing unease in Sam's chest, a primal instinct whispering that he wasn't as alone on this road as he thought. The highway was a familiar route, one Sam had driven countless times since starting college, a quiet stretch where the occasional deer or raccoon might dart across, but nothing more. Picture a young man, tired but alert, unaware of the chaos that waits ahead. He'd spent the weekend with his friend Tara, catching up over cheap beers and late-night movies. Their laughter a temporary escape from the stress of exams and deadlines. But now, as he drove, the weight of the night pressed against him. The darkness outside his windows a living thing that seemed to pulse with every mile. He was about halfway home, the clock on the dashboard glowing 1:47 a.m., when a flicker of movement caught his eye. A shape in the distance, illuminated by his headlights, standing dead center in the middle of the road, its form swaying in a way that made his stomach lurch. Slow down. Look into the light. Sam eased off the gas, his truck slowing as the figure came into focus, his heart sinking with a mix of confusion and dread. It was a man, tall and gaunt, his body moving in a jerky, unnatural rhythm, as if he were dancing to a song only he could hear. He wore tattered clothes, a stained shirt and jeans that hung loosely on his frame, his arms flailing in wide, erratic arcs, his feet shuffling in a chaotic pattern that defied logic. His face was a mask of wild intensity, his eyes wide and, unblinking, his mouth stretched into a manic grin that sent a shiver racing down Sam's spine. Feel the rhythm of his dance, a chaos that doesn't belong. The man's movements were hypnotic, a grotesque performance in the middle of the highway, and for a moment, Sam couldn't look away, his mind racing with questions. Who is he? What's he doing here? Until the reality of the situation slammed into him like a wave. This wasn't just strange, it was dangerous. Sam slammed on the brakes, his truck screeching to a halt just feet from the man, his hands trembling as he gripped the wheel, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Stay in the cab, feel the danger draw closer. The man didn't stop dancing, his movements growing more frenzied, his grin widening as he locked eyes with Sam, his gaze a mix of madness and intent that made Sam's blood run cold. He stepped closer, his dance morphing into a lurching stagger, his arms no longer flailing but reaching, his hands clawing at the air as if trying to grasp the truck itself. Sam's heart pounded, his mind screaming at him to move, to get out of there. But before he could shift into reverse, the man lunged, his body slamming against the hood with a sickening thud, his hands swiping at the windshield, leaving streaks of dirt and sweat on the glass. Feel the impact, a predator's strike. Sam screamed, his foot slamming on the gas, the truck lurching backward as the man stumbled, his laughter, a high, unhinged cackle, echoing through the night, a sound that would haunt Sam's dreams for weeks to come. He swerved to the side, his tires screeching as he maneuvered around the man, his hands shaking as he fumbled for his phone, his fingers dialing 911 with a desperation he'd never known. Call for help. Feel the fear take hold. "There's a man on the highway," he shouted, his voice cracking as he relayed his location, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the man chasing after him, his dance continuing in the darkness. The operator's voice was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos in Sam's mind, instructing him to keep driving, to get to safety, promising that help was on the way. Sam didn't stop until he reached the edge of town, pulling into a gas station parking lot, his body trembling as he waited for the police, his mind replaying the man's wild grin, his clawing hands, the sheer madness of it all. Picture a young man, shaken by a night gone wrong, searching for answers. The police arrived, their questions a blur as Sam recounted the encounter, his voice shaky, his hands still gripping the steering wheel as if letting go would mean facing the man again. They searched the highway, but the man was gone, vanished, into the night, leaving behind only rumors, whispers of a drifter high on something stronger than alcohol, a ghost on the road whose fate remained a mystery. Days later, Sam called Tara, his voice heavy with the weight of that night. The memory of the dancing man still vivid, a shadow that refused to fade. Feel the memory linger, a terror that won't let go. Tara listened in silence, her breath catching as she spoke, her words a chilling echo of Sam's fear. "I've heard stories," she said, her voice low, "about people on that highway. Lost souls high on whatever they can find, wandering in the dark. Some don't make it through the night." Feel the weight of her words, a truth that haunts. The road. The uncertainty gnawed at Sam, his drives now filled with a constant vigilance, his eyes scanning the darkness for that manic grin, that chaotic dance, a reminder that some dangers don't need to be supernatural to terrify. They just need to be real, lurking on the lonely highways, waiting for the right moment to strike. Some prayers are answered in ways that haunt you forever. Their echoes a reminder that curiosity can open doors better left closed. I was 13, maybe 14, a boy caught between the innocence of childhood and the restless curiosity of adolescence, living in a small, quiet town where the nights were long and the stars seemed to whisper secrets I couldn't yet understand. My fascination with the supernatural had grown over the years, fueled by late-night stories shared with friends, tales of spirits and entities that linger just beyond the veil of the living, beings that could be summoned if you knew the right words, the right rituals. Among them, the Djinn intrigued me the most. Ancient, powerful, neither good nor evil, but always unpredictable. Their presence a gamble between wonder and terror. I wanted to see one, to feel its presence, to know that the stories were real. And so in the stillness of my bedroom one night, I knelt by my bed, my hands clasped tightly, and prayed for an encounter, my voice a trembling whisper, as I asked for something I didn't fully understand, something I wasn't ready to face. My room was a sanctuary, a small space I'd filled with the trappings of my youth, posters of soccer players on the walls, a cluttered desk piled with books and half-finished homework, a window that overlooked the backyard, its glass reflecting the faint glow of the moon. The air was still, the only sound the soft creak of the house settling, a familiar rhythm that usually lulled me to sleep. But that night, after my prayer, the stillness felt different, heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't name, a presence that seemed to press against the walls, waiting for me to notice, waiting for me to listen. I climbed into bed, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and unease, my mind racing with thoughts of what I'd invited into my life, what I'd asked to see. I pulled the covers up to my chin, my eyes darting to the shadows in the corners of the room, shadows that seemed to shift and shimmer in the moonlight, shadows that felt alive in a way they never had before. It started a few nights later, a sound that pierced the quiet of my room, a sound that turned my blood to ice. I was lying in bed, the moonlight casting a pale glow across the floor, when I heard it, a voice, soft and feminine, calling my name from the distance, its tone gentle but insistent, as if it knew me, as if it wanted me to answer. "Amin," it whispered, the sound drifting through the air like a breeze, its source impossible to pinpoint, its presence a violation of the safety I'd always felt in my room. I sat up, my breath shallow, my heart pounding in my chest as I scanned the darkness, searching for the woman who'd spoken, for the figure I was sure must be there, hiding in the shadows, watching me with eyes I couldn't see. But the room was empty, the shadows still, the only sound my own ragged breathing, the only movement the faint tremble of my hands as I clutched the edge of my blanket, my mind racing with a fear I couldn't name, a fear that told me I wasn't alone, that I'd been heard, that my prayer had been answered in a way I hadn't expected. The voice came again the next night, and the night after that, each time a little closer, a little clearer, its tone shifting from gentle to pleading, as if it were trying to draw me out, to pull me into the darkness where it waited. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it was just my imagination, a trick of the mind brought on by my obsession with the djinn. But the fear was too real, too visceral, to dismiss. And then, a few nights later, a new voice joined the first, a deep guttural growl, a sound that seemed to come from the depths of the earth, its tone harsh and commanding, its presence a weight that pressed against my chest, making every breath a struggle. Amin. It growled, the word a threat, a promise, a declaration that whatever was out there knew me, wanted me, wouldn't let me go. I could feel it watching me, its gaze a burning thing that seared into my skin, its presence a shadow that loomed larger. With every passing night, a shadow that seemed to grow, to take shape, to become something I could almost see. The encounters escalated, each one more terrifying than the last, until one night, I saw it. A figure, tall and imposing, standing in the corner of my room, its form shrouded in darkness, its silhouette framed by the faint moonlight that seeped through the window. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs too long, its head adorned with a hat that tilted at an unnatural angle, its presence a violation of everything I knew, everything I believed. I couldn't see its face, couldn't make out its features, but I felt its eyes on me, unblinking, unyielding, a gaze that pierced through the darkness, through me, as if it could see into my soul, as if it knew every fear, every doubt, every secret I'd ever held. The voices came together that night, the feminine whisper and the guttural growl, a chorus of terror that filled the room, their words overlapping, calling my name in a rhythm that made my heart race, my mind scream, my body tremble with a fear I couldn't escape. I prayed again, not for an encounter this time, but for protection, my voice a desperate plea as I begged for safety, for peace, for the darkness to leave me be. Please make it stop, I whispered, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles turned white. My eyes squeezed shut as I tried to block out the voices, the figure, the terror that had taken over my life. And it worked, at least for a moment. The voices faded, their echoes lingering in the air like a fading storm. The figure in the corner vanishing as if it had never been, leaving behind a silence that felt heavy, oppressive, a silence that told me it wasn't over, that it was waiting, biding its time. But the reprieve was enough to give me hope, enough to make me believe I could fight back, that I could reclaim the safety I'd lost, the peace I'd taken for granted. For weeks, the cycle continued, the voices returning each night, the figure reappearing in the shadows, its presence a constant reminder of my mistake, my recklessness, my hubris. But each time I prayed, the djinn, or whatever it was, reacted, its voices growing quieter, its figure retreating, as if my words were a weapon it couldn't withstand, a light it couldn't face. And then, one night, I had a dream, a vision, so vivid it felt more real than the waking world, a dream that changed everything. I was standing in a vast, empty desert, the sand stretching endlessly before me, the sky above a deep, unyielding black, the air thick with the scent of ancient, dust and forgotten magic. The figure was there, its hat tilted, its form towering over me, but this time I wasn't afraid. I was angry, resolute, my voice steady as I prayed, not for protection, but for banishment, for freedom, for an end to the nightmare I'd brought upon myself. The figure screamed, a sound that shook the earth, its form dissolving into the sand, its presence fading into the void, leaving me alone in the desert. The silence a balm against the terror I'd endured. When I woke, the air in my room was different, lighter, cleaner, as if a weight had been lifted, as if the djinn had truly gone. The voices never returned, the figure never reappeared, and for the first time in weeks I slept through the night, my dreams untainted by the shadows that had haunted me. I was grateful, so grateful, for the peace that had returned, for the safety I'd reclaimed. But the experience left scars I can't erase, a memory that lingers in the quiet moments, a shadow that follows me through the years. I've spent countless nights since then wondering what I'd encountered, whether it was truly a djinn, a spirit drawn by my prayer, or something else entirely. Something darker, something I'll never fully understand. I've read about djinn since then, learned of their power, their unpredictability, their ability to manipulate, to terrify, to teach lessons in ways that leave you changed, and I believe that's what I faced. A being that answered my call, that showed me the danger of my curiosity, that left me with a fear I'll carry forever. The djinn's whisper in the dark is a sound I'll never forget, a reminder that some doors, once opened, can never be closed, that some prayers are answered in ways that haunt you for a lifetime.